Welcome to Talk Through Walls with
Walk Through Walls.
Gary Sambrook.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good. You?
It's a bit of a warm one today.
It is warm. It's too warm for me.
Hot. It's very, very hot. Tempers are flaring in the heat, not just created by the weather, but also by the upcoming budget. Rachel Reeves has set herself various fiscal rules. She has, I think, broken a few of them. She promised no tax rises at the last one. Now she's saying, well, inevitably we might have to reconsider that. People aren't happy. But what I wanted to focus, rather than just raging about how she may or may not have done the right thing or whatever, the wrong thing, what can businesses do? Because I know there's a lot of business owners probably across the UK with a sort of pending sense of doom, like this just happens to me. What influence can I possibly have over the process? Is it even worth trying to engage with these politicians? Do they just make up their own minds and have it decided long before the budget's announced? Is there any point engaging? Gary Sambrook.
So
sell the merits of engaging with government.
So there's always a reason to engage, even if you're just making your point. And I think you can never say, you can't necessarily complain. It's a bit like moaning about the government not voting sort of thing. It's like you have to engage, you have to take part in order to be part of the process. And if you're not engaging with it, then at the end of the day, you can only have yourself to blame in one sense if the outcome isn't favourable or sympathetic to your business needs, because you were given an opportunity, and there are plenty of opportunities out there, to be able to raise your voice, say what you need, make your arguments, to say this is what my industry needs, this is what my business needs, or even this is what I need as an individual. Because these things are constantly being reviewed and examined and chucked into the policy mix throughout the year. But obviously the run up to the major fiscal event of the year, the budget, is a prime time to be able to do that, because it sets the tone, it sets the parameters of what government can do within that financial envelope.
So when is the budget due to be announced?
Well, so we don't have a date yet, but it's due to be in October, November, apparently, if you believe the news reports. Now, obviously, there's always these things that kites are flown up in the air about certain policies, especially this time of year, because there's not a lot of news going on. So a leak from Number 10 or from Whitehall or a department flying a particular policy could just be a rogue leak from someone actually saying,
they're doing market testing, aren't they?
Yeah, but actually, a lot
Mail.
of the time it could just be market testing and seeing what the reaction is, and then not just of the public, but then also of their own MPs to see where the appetite is at. Because once one of those goes up in the papers, one of those kites, MPs will start getting inbox being full from people in their constituency, and then they'll talk to their whips or they'll talk to the minister, and even these days just in the departmental WhatsApp group, which happens quite a lot. And then people will be bouncing off each other to see what the tone is like and what the reaction is.
So about timing, if a business in a whatever sector it is hasn't started engaging yet, is there still time to feasibly impact the output of?
Absolutely, yeah. So
you're saying it's not too late?
It's not too late, because a lot of this stuff, obviously, there's lots to feed in. Because a lot of the decisions made will be made in the week or two running up to the budget, because they'll need to have the latest data to be able to plan properly on actually what the envelope is. And that data comes through quite regularly, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, and sometimes they'll have the live figures, which they'll have in the Treasury, which might even be weekly. And so what you need to be able to do is set your message out very clearly and very early on. And then campaign around that, because obviously if you decide a couple of weeks beforehand that you've got something to say, you could put out a PR and a press release, but then that's only one hit. What we try and encourage is about a conversation over time and a demonstration about how this is going to impact on your business or on your community or you as an individual, and do that over time, and using all of the different mechanisms of influence, and not just necessarily the decision maker, but all of the people in the mix around in an industry or a sector, to be able to build on that conversation, build on that message, and then hopefully deliver on some influence.
So let's say you run a business in Stoke-on-Trent. Let's say it's a vape business, high street vape vendor, one of the legitimate ones, not selling any illicit produce, just totally legit. if you go out on your own and say, I think the government should do X, Y, and Z, and taxes should be adjusted in our favour in this way, surely you on your own, that's not going to cut through. Whereas, is the advice that you should group together with other players in the sector?
Well, I think the answer is that all of it works, because your individual business will obviously have its own individual demands, and so it's always worthwhile trying to do something yourself. But then obviously there's a sectoral influence too about it, and so joining up with different trade bodies, teaming up with other colleagues in different companies or competitors or non-competitors to be able to do that message on a bigger scale does help greatly. And when you do things by scale, it's easier to get through. I mean, if you're an individual who wants to go in and influence and meet a minister, it's very unlikely that will happen. But if you go through as a pitch, as part of an industry or as part of a body or instructor like us, a public affairs agency, to be able to help build that messaging and that influence up, it will be listened to more because you have more reach. You'll be able to not just say that you're that lone shop in Stoke-on-Trent, but actually you're a collection of people across all four corners of the United Kingdom in communities and constituencies which affect the government agenda, because there's obviously the fiscal agenda, which obviously they need to try and balance the books, and they need to try and assert their sort of policy space. But then there's also the political agenda of what they can get through and where do they want to go. What are the driving factors behind it, and how you try and message that into, well, this is what you can afford, this is what we need, but then also where are the political opportunities. Now, that's why we come in, because we look at it from a political angle. We know what they'll be worried about at this time in the electoral cycle, what parts of the country they'll be most worried about because where are they most exposed, etc. And then also the individual MPs who are sympathetic to particular causes all have big influences in their constituency where there might be big industry or big sectors. So that's where we come in, and we can give you this sort of intelligence and sort of knowledge that we have been able to build up from years of our multiple experiences in Walk Through Walls, but using all of that together to try and create a campaign to influence where government's going is always better on scale, but it's also useful to do as an individual because you always have your own individual little nuances to what you do as well.
So that was going to be my next question, but you just answered it, which is how can Walk Through Walls help? One final question, I think, and it's a bit of a left field one, but it's on the same topic. The other day when Donald Trump came to Britain, he went to his golf resort in Turnberry and he had Keir Starmer in. So even though Trump was visiting, it looked like Starmer was visiting him. The optics were kind of quite hard to figure out, but actually it did make sense. Trump was there and he gave a sort of mini lecture in front of a heavily cringing Keir Starmer, and one of the points he said about how to get elected and to stay elected was to lower taxes so that you could grow the economy, so you'd stimulate economic growth. Kind of makes a whole lot of sense. Clearly this Labour government in the UK are a million miles away from that. Their philosophy is tax hard, get revenues in immediately. What do you think it would take, other than a change of government, for Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer to suddenly say, do you know what, why don't we have a go at lowering taxes and stimulating economic growth in the same way Trump outlined?
I don't think we're going to see them doing that anytime soon, and I think we previously spoke in the past in one of our podcasts about their different mindset. Now their mindset is that they want to try and create growth by tinkering on regulation and making things like planning easier and taking down the barriers to growth rather than the tax side, which is obviously what Trump has done, and but Trump, to be fair, is doing both in many senses. But the Labour government in the UK is very much focusing on that growth agenda, but from a regulation point of view and house building, etc., which that's going to take a long time. In order to see the fruits of their labour, to try and bring it through from a fiscal point of view, bringing in revenue for them. The tax is obviously a more short-term thing where you can see it, it's more immediate, etc. And you can see the growth lifting within a couple of months because people are paying less and taxation, investing more, and it opens up more opportunities. I don't see that changing anytime soon here until the fiscal situation gets to a point where it truly cracks, where they have to wake up and smell the coffee, as it were. But the difference between spending and bringing in is getting wider and wider, and it creates an even bigger headache for them.
Yeah, because I think the fear for individual businesses that they think, oh my goodness, there's a whole lot of more punitive tax measures that come in on an individual basis that impacts our business, whatever it may be, the vape shop in Stoke, for example. But then more broadly, the fear is, I think, felt by many people, is that, you know, similar to the announcement last autumn, that was billed as pro-growth, pro-investment, all these good things. But actually it's been the reverse. The reverse is true. I think that many people fear that what is announced this autumn could actually be a doubling down on the current position to make things even worse. I mean, how much worse can things get?
Well, I mean, you can never predict these things, can you? Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the messaging is always going to be doom and gloom. Now, last budget, everyone assumed that it actually wasn't going to be as bad as the original suggestions, because there was a series of very miserable headlines, often being driven by the political side in number 10, because that's what they wanted to create, because they had this 20 billion pound black hole to fill. They were having to make tough decisions in difficult times.
A 40 to 50 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's got even bigger.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get lots of doom sort of headlines, but running up. But no one really knows what the Treasury are doing until they've actually done it.
Right.
And that, maybe even the weekend before, when the leaks start coming out of actual substantive policy. But the thing, but most important thing to remember for anyone is that try and be part of the conversation. Try and get involved. Try and influence. Listen. Try and put across your point. And that's the only way of really, truly, at the day after the budget, sitting down and go, if it doesn't go your way, you can at least say I tried. If it did go your way, then you can take a bit of kudos on the fact you've helped influence things.
Brilliant. That was a shorter than normal talk through walls with
Walk through walls.
And the message from Gary Sambrook is always engage.
Absolutely.